I started out as a teenager, really. I had seen a movie. It literally drug me through the halls of insanity when I first saw it. A friend who saw the film at the time became physically ill. What an impression for us. So many years later, my wife and I moved from San Antonio to Austin. I had heard the film had been made here in Austin. Where was the house? It was urban legend. Was it real or not? Bunch of false leads. Finally got a map from a friend of mine, Michelle, at work, and she had a friend who was taking some other friends out to the house to party, and sure enough I found it, but it must have been about 2 or 3 days after they had moved the house. I mean, I go out there, I didn't get to see it. The ground was still fresh from where the foundation was, but I got a few pictures and I put it on my website, small website. I got emails from around the world wanting more. They wanted to know where the house was, what happened to the gas station, the graveyard, and where's the cast now, and it just really snowballed from there since 1998. Well, here we are in a late 1800s house built from a kit in Round Rock, Texas. Obviously, this is the most important area of the house where his victims came in. Kirk was killed up here. Pam followed him in. Leatherface had his steel door just beyond here, which was put in for the movie. It wasn't an original part of the house. The house was actually made from a kit out of a Sears Roebuck catalog back in the late 1800s. The parts were actually pre-cut and drawn by horse and wagon from downtown Austin to Round Rock, where the house sat for about 100 years. It was built there. There's actually a couple of houses similar to it that were out there as well. They're gone. It changed owners over that period of time. It sat on Quick Hill, which is in Round Rock. People rented the house, and it was during that part of the 70s about where a family was renting the house. They allowed Tobe Hooper and company to come in. They moved to the right side of the house during filming. Well, here we are upstairs. This is where Sally first tries to get away from Leatherface. Sally was trying to find help. She was trying to find somebody to help her in this death house. And the first thing she does when she runs upstairs is she finds Grandpa in this bedroom. Please. Now, obviously some changes have been made to this house. This room is a bit smaller than it used to be. This is to accommodate large parties that can dine in the main area, but this was Grandpa and Grandma's room where she found both corpses. After a while, the house just really took a turn for the worse. There were some vandals who did some serious damage to it, and it wasn't until the Antlers here who came out to purchase the house. They moved it in several pieces out here to Kingsland, Texas, where it's now a gorgeous home restaurant business. It was moved into several pieces by crane, then hopped on trucks out here. It was quite a long trip. But we're all really glad to see that it's being kept up, that it's at its majesty that it is now. Well, in this room, this is probably the most infamous room of the whole house. The final scene, the dinner scene, happened here. We had a huge homemade table resting in the middle here. Of course, we had Grandpa on one side, we had Sally on this side. All the windows were covered up in blankets and coats because it was supposed to be nighttime and they didn't want any sunlight to come in. But yet it was middle of summer, it was 100 and something outside. In here you had lamps that were in the ceiling. No ventilation whatsoever. About here is where they had the bucket with the sledgehammer where they're actually trying to bludgeon Sally for dinner.
Come on!
Since the house was moved here to Kingsland, the first business to open here was the Kingsland Old Town Grill. It was then that I started bringing cast members out here, such as Alan Danziger, who played Jerry from the film, of course, Gunnar Hansen, who had not seen the house since he actually played his character for the film. I also brought up Paul Partain, Ed Neal. Then the Kingsland Old Town Grill moved out, and then we got the Four Bears restaurant that came and stayed here for a while. Wonderful food. They put on banquets. They also put on screenings out here once in a while. They'll bring a big film screen out here. Bunch of people come out with their ice chest and have a good old time out here. And there was even some cast members out here for the last screening of Chainsaw. Marilyn Burns, Gunnar Hansen, all of them came out and had a really wonderful time. Well, this is the bone room. We were first shown this room, and Hannah was trying to find her boyfriend, Kurt. She goes through a curtain that was here. She kicks a vase over and stumbles into a bunch of feathers, and she is introduced to how crazy this house is. We have chickens that are in cages hanging from the ceiling. We have bones hanging from the ceiling. Just pure horrific mayhem in here. And of course she screams and runs out, but this is also the scene where Sally gets away from the family during the dinner scene. She's shown crashing through this window over here, back into daylight, back into reality. The first owners, which was the Kingsland Old Town Grill, they really weren't, they'd be honest, they could really care less about it. They were more interested, understandably, in running a restaurant, which they did their best in doing. The second business that came into Four Bears restaurant, bit younger crowd, understood and used that marketability somewhat towards tourism. It definitely brings some business out here. Well, here's the kitchen. It looks a lot different than it used to for the film. Naturally, they've had to redo this kitchen for commercial purposes to have a real working kitchen here to serve gourmet food. It was right about here where the famous meat hook scene happened with Pam. Bob Burns had rigged up his railroad ties and also a real meat hook to hang Pam from here. Where this window is, there's a doorway here that you could have line of sight to the actual dinner scene, which is next door here. Well, as far as locations, I have to say, of course, the house is probably the most fun. Whenever I come out here, it's usually because of a cast appearance. Because I get such a huge response from people around the world with the common interest of Chainsaw, I went on and started up the official Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan club. And we have tons of memberships from around the world, really. We send out newsletters. People can purchase autographs and other types of merchandise. It's once again, it's a meeting for people who perhaps can't make the journey to Kingsland, to Texas, and see the sights. The fan club kind of brings us all together. And there's always fans out here who have been going to my website, and we get to meet, we get to talk shop, we get to talk Chainsaw, get to shake hands, and really the fans of the movie are just so wonderful. You would think that horror fans, they'd be gothic and weird and whatnot, but I definitely get to meet a lot of neat people from around the world. That's what I like the most. Saw's family.
Dude, you're it. You can go now. I got this one. You want to not do that? We just washed it.
You don't act, you react.
I'm coming, Effie. I'm coming. Hey, I know what I'll do. Ow, that hurts.
You did all this?
Hutto.
Big time American director movie guy.
Home of the Hutto Hippos. You're welcome to Mike in charge, ladies. I do my talking Finnish.
Kolwaha, Mary Sunshine, Kolwaha.
These actors are such whiners. Thank you. Would you believe the stuff your lady's hawking me? No, it's not.
How to use your IBM copier 125. First, turn it on.
Cast this guy.